Hello everybody, I just wanted to give you the update for Tuesday, October 15th. Things are progressing. They're progressing slowly, but they are progressing. So I wanted to give you an update of the status of things in the city right now. I think the number one question on everybody's mind is, when am I going to get power restored to my house? The easy answer for that from us is, I don't know. We still have significant portions of the city that are out of power. You're not in this alone, and nobody, I promise, is singling you or your neighborhood out. I'm without power. Most of the city council's without power. The city manager's home's without power, and I really don't know when TECO's going to be to each circuit. So as of 10:45 today, the outages have been reduced to under 100,000 in TECO's service area, which is significantly lower each day. It's dropping each day. So I have no way, and our staff has no way to know when your address is going to get back up. I wish we did. I know it's inconvenient, it's uncomfortable, but it is going to get cooler. The weather's getting cooler, so that's helpful. The second thing I hear is on a lot of people's mind is the boil water advisory. And so we do have some progress on that, although not as much as I know you wish we did. So I told you the past 2 days we've done sampling. It's required by law to do a series of sampling before we're allowed to remove the precautionary notice. A few of those samples came back positive, which didn't really shock us because those were the areas where we had to turn the water off and repair pipes and turn it back on. So it was not surprising that we found some bacteria in some of those areas because we had to open the system. Hello everybody, I just wanted to give you the update for Tuesday, October 15th. Things are progressing. They're progressing slowly, but they are progressing. So I wanted to give you an update of the status of things in the city right now. I think the number one question on everybody's mind is, when am I going to get power restored to my house? The easy answer for that from us is, I don't know. We still have significant portions of the city that are out of power. You're not in this alone, and nobody, I promise, is singling you or your neighborhood out. I'm without power. Most of the city council's without power. The city manager's home's without power, and I really don't know when TECO's going to be to each circuit. So as of 10:45 today, the outages have been reduced to under 100,000 in TECO's service area, which is significantly lower each day. It's dropping each day. So I have no way, and our staff has no way to know when your address is going to get back up. I wish we did. I know it's inconvenient, it's uncomfortable, but it is going to get cooler. The weather's getting cooler, so that's helpful. The second thing I hear is on a lot of people's mind is the boil water advisory. And so we do have some progress on that, although not as much as I know you wish we did. So I told you the past 2 days we've done sampling. It's required by law to do a series of sampling before we're allowed to remove the precautionary notice. A few of those samples came back positive, which didn't really shock us because those were the areas where we had to turn the water off and repair pipes and turn it back on. So it was not surprising that we found some bacteria in some of those areas because we had to open the system up, and sometimes a little dirt will get in there when you're making the repairs. So that's not a surprise. However, the good news is that these locations have now been kind of identified. And so we're working with the Department of Health right now to try to get permission to remove the boil water ban for the other areas of the city that came back clean, and just retain it in those isolated areas where we know we had to breach the system. So we cannot remove the boil water notice until the Department of Health gives us those permissions. We are in contact with them Today, right now, as I speak, our staff is talking to Florida Department of Health. We are hoping that we can get authorization to remove the boil water ban for the unaffected areas of the city. But again, we can't make that call without their permission. So hopefully we'll have some good news on that soon. The next area that still remains somewhat of a threat is the river level. The water is flowing very rapidly, as you know. As I've already discussed, the water coming in from Pasco County down Cypress Creek into Cowhouse Creek. That water is expected to crest or max out at 2 p.m. this afternoon. It is supposed to be no more than 3 to 6 inches above what it was yesterday at the Fowler Avenue gauge. So we are monitoring that. So far, the Fowler Avenue gauge has tracked exactly as the Army Corps of Engineers told us it would. We're going to continue to monitor that gauge, but so far everything they told us has turned out to be accurate. And so what should happen is at 2 p.m. the water level should stop going up. It should probably very gradually start at that point to decrease, but it will be a very slow decrease. So I'm very optimistic, I'm cautiously optimistic, let me put it that way, that our structures are going to be fine. We've pumped water down up in Raintree, up on Soaring, and I think we will be okay, and I don't think that water is going to threaten any homes. So that's good news. The debris cleanup started yesterday. We have our contractors, it started in the neighborhood yesterday picking things up. It's a slow process. This is going to take a very long time. But I do have a couple things I want to ask of you about this. One is our contractor, these are not our city employees picking this up. These are FEMA contractors. They will not pick up debris that's been bagged. If you've put it in plastic bags, they will not pick it up. And so in the places where they have picked up, they've picked up the piles and bypassed the bags. So if you're putting new debris out, we ask you not to bag it. If you already have bagged debris out by the curb, you have a mountain of bags, leave it there for now. And we're trying to figure out how we're going to deal with that. However, this is up to you. I'm going to give you the option here. If your pile is there and you have some bags next to it, if you want, it's probably to your benefit to open the bags and dump it out onto the pile, because it'll probably get picked up sooner. Because if the claw truck comes around, they'll pick up the pile but not the bags, and then you're stuck with the bags until we can figure out how to get those picked up. So that's up to you. I'm not telling you have to rip open the bags. If you want to leave them, and we'll figure this out. But if you're putting new stuff out, please don't bag it, just pile it up. The other thing is, if you've put stuff in like an old trash can and you've put it out there, like our yard waste guys will normally just dump out the trash can, don't do that. And if you have done that and it's sitting out on the curb, please go dump that out onto the pile. Because what will happen is the vendor, the contractor will come by, they will either skip it and leave it there, or they will pick up and take your container too with the claw truck. They're not like our normal waste city workers where they'll get out and do this. They're just going to go down there with the claw, and that's all they're going to do. So if I were you, unless you want to lose your trash can, I would dump those out. So let's see, what else do we have? Oh, I have some other good news that we're doing to try to help the public and expedite recovery. I have a new order that is effective today that waives some of the permit requirements. So let me go through that. So this is good news for you. First of all, the replacement of fences that were blown down or damaged as a result of Hurricane Milton. If you are repairing or replacing a fence that was damaged by the hurricane, we are waiving the permit requirement. If you are repairing the fence, regardless of how many sections, the permit requirement is waived until November the 10th. However, I want to be clear on this. This is for the reconstruction or repair of an existing fence along the same route. If you're going to expand the fence and take in more property, you have to get a permit. If you're going to install a new fence where one wasn't before, you have to get a permit. But if your fence was blown down and you're putting it back up on the same place that it was before, the permit requirement is waived until November the 10th. Similar thing with trees. If you have a damaged tree that has less than a 24-inch diameter of the trunk, you do not need a permit. You can cut it down, right? If you are removing a damaged tree that has over a 24-inch diameter, bigger tree, and it's damaged by the storm, we want you to call the city. We have crews that will come out, look at the tree, inspect it, and give you approval on the spot to take the tree out without the normal permitting process. So that should make things easier for everybody. Again, these waivers are only in effect until November the 10th, but that should help. For questions concerning this or to request somebody come by and look at your tree, please call the city at 813-506-6470. Next, the Lightfoot Center at Whiteway and 56th Street continues to be a comfort station today until 5 o'clock. You're welcome to come by, use the air conditioning, charge up your electronic devices, and just hang out for a while. We are not providing anything there. We don't have any water or food to give away there. That's not the place for that. But you're welcome to come by and sit in the comfortable building and recharge your electronic devices. Family Recreation Complex remains closed only because we have no power there. We have the facilities cleaned up. It's ready to go. As soon as we get power there and we can get the employees in, we will open it. But right now we're just at the mercy of power restoration. So the building's not damaged, and we'll get it open as quickly as we can. At Mission Hills Church, Hope, Florida continues to operate their relief station today until 3 o'clock. They have a drive-through. You enter off of Serena. They're located at 10002 North 56th Street. You can drive through and get supplies. You can get water. I think they have some basic food items. You can get diapers, pet food. I was told they have pet food there if you need that. That is open until 3 o'clock today. At the same location, they're going to shut down at 3 o'clock and reopen for an hour at between 5 and 6 to serve hot meals. So if you have been eating cold canned soup or something like that, you can get a hot meal from 5 to 6 at Mission Hills Church. And I'd like to thank all of those volunteers. I'd like to thank Pastor Paul Purvis and his staff at the church, as well as Hope, Florida, for doing this for our residents. I was also informed that Hillsborough County Public Schools are opening on Thursday, I believe countywide. So if you haven't gotten that from the Hillsborough County Public Schools, I was just informed of that a short time ago. The last thing I'd like to say, folks, is our employees here at the city are tremendous. They have I wish I could tell you some of the things that they've been able to do in the past 6 days since this storm and how hard they've been working. But you have the best employees anywhere, and we thank you for that. And so please continue to bless our city, keep us safe, and it's all this we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And I know it's a breach of protocol to be wearing a ball cap. I understand that. I'm indoors. I know that it's a breach of protocol, but I also know what I look like. So please bear with me. So I do have a couple quick announcements before we begin. These are things that are new updates. I'm not going to repeat the daily update. It's available on the website and social media, but this is brand new information that has just come in. And I think most people will be happy to hear this. And concerning the water boil protocol, we've been talking about for the past 6 days. I've been urging citizens to bear with us as we've been working with the Department of Health to try to lift that. I have some good news. We are going to be able to lift that. In fact, we have lifted it, except, and I mentioned this earlier today, we do have 4 neighborhoods where the water testing that we did came back positive for bacteria. This is not a shock to us because these are areas where we had to physically turn off the water, cut the pipe, put a new piece of pipe in, put clamps on it, and refill the hole. So all the homes downstream of those type of repairs are continued to be on a boil water notice. But the rest of the city, other than those 4 areas, can stop boiling water. We got the approval from the Department of Health to lift that. So the 4 areas are, and this is a little difficult because they're portions of neighborhoods because it depends on who's on what water line. So this is very surgical. It depends. There's going to be one house that's on a boil water and the next door neighbor's not going to be because they're on a different water feed. So the 4 neighborhoods are parts of Terrace Ridge, the Primrose neighborhood up off of Morris Bridge, a portion of the West River neighborhood, and 17 homes located around the Ben Lomond Park area. So what we have done is, this is currently up on our website, we have maps. And each of the 4, I know you can't see this from here, but this is what's on the website. So each of the 4 neighborhoods, we have a map with the addresses on the map. And then following each one of the maps is a list of specific homes. So residents, if you live in those 4 areas or you're unsure, you can look on the website right now and click on the map in your area and look to see if your address is there or if it is not. If it's not, you are good to stop boiling water. You don't have to observe the boil water protocol anymore, okay? The water main breaks, I hope that all the trees that are going to fall have fallen. I'm hoping that we've turned a corner on this and that we're not going to have any more water main breaks. So we are cautiously optimistic that this will be it. There'll be no more additional water boil notifications. I can't promise that. If we get a water main break, we'll have to reevaluate. But I think we've turned a corner on this. If you have questions about this, if you're in one of the neighborhoods and you want to know how long it's going to be for your home, or what does this mean? What can I do with my water? Am I safe to give it to my dog? The answer to that is yes. But you can call a number for specific information on your home, and that number is 813-506-6570. That's 506-6570. Now keep in mind that after business hours, that number rolls to the water treatment plant. At the water treatment plant, there is 1 employee working overnight. So if that employee is in the other end of the water treatment plant doing something essential, you may have a little trouble. It's a 24-hour number, but there's 1 person there. So keep that in mind. And I think real quickly, our city manager's got some other recent news that has come in.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Good afternoon. So the power has been coming on progressively throughout the city over the last few days. So some of our facilities that were closed are now open for operation. So I want to update the community. So the Lightfoot Recreational Center, which has been serving as our comfort station, will actually return to normal operations tomorrow as a senior center. We will keep one of the rooms in the facility available for a small comfort station, at least tomorrow. The Family Recreational Complex on Whiteway came onto TECO Power just late this afternoon. So it will be open tomorrow from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. So the starting hours are a little different, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Use of the pool will be delayed because now that we have power, we have to run through a complete treatment cycle. That takes several hours. But by the end of the week, we should have everything back in order. City Hall will be business as usual. I want to also update the community on a couple of permit questions that we are getting. Typically in the city of Terrace, if you are doing fence work or if you're doing tree work, you need to pull a permit. I have waived the fence permit requirement, so if you are repairing or replacing a pre-existing fence, you don't need a permit. So just take care of that work at your own schedule as soon as you can. That waiver will apply through November 10th. If you are thinking about putting in a brand new fence that never existed before, then you still have to pull a permit. We are also waiving the tree permit requirement. So trees, if you have trees that are still in the ground that are 24 inches wide at chest height, their trunk, 24 inches wide or less, you are not required to get a permit. So we're waiving that permit requirement. So if you need to prune that tree because one of the limbs is completely lopped off or hanging, or the tree itself took a lot of damage and needs to be removed, if it's 24 inches wide at chest height or less, you can do that without permit. If the tree is 24 inches wide or more at chest height, you don't necessarily need a permit, but you need to call the city, and I'll give you the number. It's 813-506-6470. Let me repeat that, 813-506-6470. You need to call to request an inspection. We'll have the city arborist or designee go out, take a look at your tree to assess the condition of the tree to determine how much of that tree needs to be taken down, if any of it needs to be taken down. And once that clearance is given, then you are, as a homeowner, are free to go ahead and take care of that tree. So those are the updates that I have. And if we learn more, I will share that with the community through our social media platforms and the website.
Thank you, Mr. Bia. Okay, our next item of business is a recognition. We're starting out on a positive note now here with our Employee of the Month for the month of September is Michelle Wilkinson. Michelle, would you please approach the podium? Good evening. So, Michelle Wilkinson is an integral member of the City of Temple Terrace Leisure Services. She's been here for 19 years and has served in various positions over that time span. She currently is a Recreation Leader 2 at the Omar K. Lightfoot Senior Center. So if you've been to Lightfoot, you always see Michelle there. These are just a couple of examples of things that Michelle has done to earn this distinguished award. And I will tell you that to get recognized as an Employee of the Month in that department is quite a feat because we've got a whole department full of superstars. So this is really an accomplishment. So just a few things. Michelle helped to conceptualize, promote, and execute the first ever Lightfoot Senior Olympic Games, which are a vital part for our seniors at the Lightfoot Center. She also is an integral part of the Senior Expo, which is an annual event that takes place at Lightfoot that touches the lives of many seniors and their families. She is responsible for the monthly senior field trips, which is really cool program that we're able to do that takes seniors to different places, points of interest throughout the community. She recently took them to Armature Works for a lunch outing and followed by a ride on the Tampa water taxi, which is pretty cool. You didn't tell me you were doing that. I would have probably come. So, you know, keep in mind, folks, these are oftentimes people that don't get to go anywhere. So this is life-changing stuff for people. She also takes, she's a lead in providing a critical service of driving our seniors to doctor's appointments and pharmacies to pick up their medications. She takes them to grocery stores if they're transportation challenged and need to go get food and supplies. She coordinates that. She also plans the routes to maximize the effectiveness of those trips and minimize wasted time and gasoline and that kind of thing. She's personally involved in the lives of these seniors. They love her. They're family to her. To them, they're family. And so all of these things, and there's much, much more, but we have a long agenda, so I'm not going to be able to brag on you all that I could. But Michelle, I want to thank you for everything you do and your staff. You don't know the difference that you're making in the lives of our seniors, so thank you.
Thanks.
Michelle, whoa. Wait, you're not done yet. Would you like to say a few words?
I'm really bad up here. I'm really, yeah. I can talk to you on the phone like you're my best friend and like you're my grandma, but being in front of
That's
everything
fine.
and everyone is just not usually my
We
thing.
would like to give you a certificate, though. Hate to have one of you guys give it. You look better in the picture.
You're good.
Ready, 1, 2, 3. One more. Thank you.
Next, we have a board appointment. We have, there's one regular member vacancy on the Riverwatch Task Force. The city received an application from Meade Lewis. Mr. Lewis's term has expired and he's interested in being reappointed. Mr. Lewis is here. I don't know if you'd like to say a few words. If you would, you're welcome. Good evening. You doing okay? Is your home okay?
No. Anyway, thank you guys so much. I moved here, 5 years ago, I think it is. And I've just fallen in love with Temple Terrace, and I love volunteering any way that I can. Whether that's making stupid little apps to help facilitate trick-or-treating in town or, volunteering on this Riverwatch committee. Thank you guys so much for supporting my efforts. Being chairman of the committee has the Riverwatch Task Force has allowed for me to really help guide volunteer efforts, help broaden our scope and our mission so that we can help keep this place beautiful, green, and keep our water, as incredible as it is, even if this week we had too much of it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Is there a motion to approve the appointment of Meade Lewis as a regular member to the Riverwatch Task Force?
Move to appoint Meade Lewis to the Riverwatch Task Force.
Second. Is there discussion of the motion? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Thank you for your service, Mr. Lewis. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes of our October 1st City Council meeting? And if so, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Any corrections or adjustments to the minutes? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Minutes are adopted. Persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. There are request forms in the back of the room. If you want to fill those out and deliver them to the city clerk to my left, we will recognize you in the order received. Council has agreed to a 30-minute time limit for all public comment, for this section of the meeting rather, to be continued at the end of the meeting as more time is needed. I don't know that that's happened in a long time. That's a lot of people to fill up 30 minutes, but I like to read that periodically so when it does happen. 3-minute time limit is opposed on all public comments, individual public comments. And we do ask that speakers come to the podium, state their name and city of residence, and we like to assure you that your items are followed up on. Those that are within the city are power to follow up on. I currently have 2 requests to speak. The first one is Mr. Loeb. Welcome.
Welcome. Glad to see you all. Really. My name is Charles Loeb. I live in Terrace Park. And I want to talk, first thing I want to do is compliment, like the mayor did, compliment the people, especially at the Mission Hills Church, for the leadership they've shown in the community. And I also wanted to mention the fact that of all the people that have come from out of town from a long distance to come and try to help us around here. So I think it's important that they're recognized publicly. I did want to talk on my general theme on TECO and Hurricane Milton. I was rereading the articles about the public hearing up at Tallahassee that he was talking about for the energy increase that they proposed. And I was thinking to myself, if he considers this the level of service that we should get, he ought to be giving us the payments rather than we giving him the payments for power. And that's just being honest. By comparison, Duke had a plan for by Friday to restore power, and a lot of people already who had Duke's power restored. When I was living in Miami, I of course got FBL served, and they did sort of a triage style. Triage meaning that they fixed the easiest people first, and then they took care of everyone else, the harder ones individually. But the point being, it seems that TECO was clueless. TECO, in my opinion, was negligent in two regards. First of all, not to have more underground wiring. And secondly, why did it take them, if the problem was so big, why did it take them so long to Monday to start getting all these trucks on the road in order to get things started to restore people's power? Now, from my point of view, I'm hoping that once this is all over, that maybe people will use less power, hopefully significantly less power, because they'll be used to not having power. In other words, so they'll be much more energy conscious and hopefully help preserve the environment. But of all the things that really seem to scare me the most about this, really, is the fact that despite there was not really very much structural damage, or along in our area anyway, and all that, that people of the government were just, that so many people were shut down for so long. When we educate young people, we have to teach them to learn things, that there's going to be times that they're going to be without power. There's going to be times, matter of fact, the first power plant was actually in 1881 and went through wind power. And for centuries, people have been able to do things without power. And young people have to learn this because there's going to be times when they're not going to have power to have it do it, and they have to have a thing that's really functioning in the future. Thank you all, and good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Loeb. Michelle Whitmire.
Hi, good evening. My name is Michelle Whitmire, and I live at 407 Deer Park Avenue, which is part of what we affectionately call the Bonnie Bray neighborhood, which runs from Druid Hills to Mission Hills in our assessment, from Inverness to 56. And the reason why I'm coming here today is I've been walking the neighborhood since all of this has been going on in like a lot of the areas in Temple Terrace. We have many, many trees down. We have many, many power lines down, and we have many, many trees entangled with power lines and on roofs. And this is basically where I've been walking since the hurricane. We've been without power. The majority of the neighborhood has been without power since the hurricane. My block is a little bit unusual because TECO always manages to cut our power because they've never been properly cleaning the line. So we get power off a little bit early. We went off about 8:30. So just trying to get the scope of things. And this afternoon I decided, this is probably a really good time to go find a stump grinder. I have a stump in the backyard that needs to be addressed. So I drove around parts of Temple Terrace that I haven't had the opportunity to drive. I walked it the first time, and I know that there's been huge live oaks down everywhere, other places with lots and lots of power lines down, and again, on homes. I've talked with Mayor Andy about this personally. But the thing that really, really, really upset me, and the reason why I'm here tonight, is when I was driving around in the north side of Temple Terrace, what I noticed is that the golf course is open for business when I live in a neighborhood that is majority without power. I love our golf course. I've been a member of our golf course. I'm happy that I'm able to walk the golf course. I understand it's not full service, but it is coming across as a neighborhood that frequently loses power, not even in a hurricane, we lost it for 4 days, but in other situations that we are always constantly having to not go through power, and then you turn around, all of the trees are being cleared on Bannockburn, and there's very few even sounds of power saws coming from our neighborhood this morning. And I'm looking for this. I'm seeing what's going on. I'm seeing what's happening in terms of the improvement. So I'm asking of two things. One, we have to understand that there are neighborhoods in our city that, frankly, the perception is get treated a little bit different from the other neighborhoods. It is terribly upsetting when someone has the luxury of golfing on the golf course, and I myself am personally thankful that I have a neighbor who is generous enough to have me on their generator for these last many days, which they actually need in their house for health concerns.
Ma'am, Mr. Meade Lewis?
Hello again. You have 3 minutes before you're allowed to be sick of me. So first of all, I want to thank all of you all. You were heroes. This could have been so much worse. The emergency services were very active. We didn't have to worry about safety threats. And that's really honorable. And Andy, thank you so much for your daily updates. I run a company. That's tough. That's tough. So sorry if I get emotional. I mentioned that my house is not okay earlier. What ended up happening was a tree fell through my lanai, destroyed my pool, caused a bunch of damage. My neighbor, I'm going to admit names, obviously. My neighbor decided they wanted the stump of the tree off their property immediately, hired somebody to cut said tree. This person was unlicensed, uninsured, and actually had a substantial criminal record. They cut the tree, it catapulted, did about $370,000 worth of damage to my house. And so when we talk about permitting, we're allowed to cut trees that are fallen. And I agree with that when it's on your property. But this was on my structure. And from the permitting standpoint, they were allowed to cut. All right, and it did catastrophic damage to my house. About 3/8 of my property will be unusable for the next 6 months. Forget the finances of it. Luckily we're insured and we'll figure that out. That's all civil stuff. But it really hurts. It really hurts. So when you're considering, and I mean no offense when I say this, typically the city over permits, right? We require permits for everything. All right, sorry if that offends anyone, but this is a clear example of under permitting. All right, when something's on my property, I should have a say in how it's removed. And so that's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. We're very sorry to hear about your home and what you're going through. Are there other members of the public who wish to comment during this period? Anybody at all? Okay, so to the three of you, I want to first of all thank you for coming here tonight. I know it's a very frustrating period, and we're very sorry to hear about what happened to you, Mr. Lewis. So normally this is not a part for give and take in the meeting, but I do think under these circumstances it's appropriate just to state some facts that just so everybody's aware of what's going on. So there was a remark, and I'm not defending TECO, but there was a remark about why did it take TECO so long to stage resources. Well, that's not accurate. TECO had the largest staging of linemen in TECO history prior to Hurricane Milton striking. They had over 6,000 linemen from all over the country and Canada here in Hillsborough County on the ground before the hurricane hit. So TECO was not asleep at the wheel. They called people back from North Carolina, they called people back from other parts of Florida, and they put out a national request for mutual aid all throughout North America, including crews from Canada. So largest power outage in TECO history and the largest mobilization of resources in TECO history. It's taken time. If they meet their projections, they will be 7 days and they'll have everybody in Hillsborough County restored. But they started out with over 1 million people, accounts without power. Accounts, not people. That's a lot more people, but over 1 million accounts. I'm not trying to make you not frustrated with TECO. There's only one person on this dais that has electricity at their home right now. So we're in the same boat. We understand. In terms of, we were spared structural damage. We were not spared structural damage. We were spared the loss of human life, but we have lots of structural damage. There are lots and lots of people in this city whose homes were destroyed, impacted. There's people sitting on this dais whose homes were destroyed and impacted that are here at this meeting tonight. So we were not spared. We were certainly not hit as hard as some other places down south of us, Sarasota. They were hit much harder than us. Up in, believe it or not, up in Dade City and Zephyr Hills and St. Leo, San Antonio, they were hit harder, not in terms of wind damage, but in terms of post-storm flooding. So we are not, by far, we're not the worst, but we were not spared either. We have plenty of our folks, our residents in Temple Terrace, whose homes are possibly destroyed or flooded or damaged. So the golf course, thank you for bringing that up. So the golf course, unless they got power back today, they're still without power. I haven't checked. No. They got power?
This afternoon.
They got power this afternoon. Okay.
What?
I said it seems that they were prioritized.
Okay, well, this is not a back and forth. I'm just putting out facts, okay? I was in touch with the golf course. We've been in touch with them all along. Until today, they were without power too. We don't control whether they golf on their course or not. I will tell you that they haven't had their facility open because they've had no power, unless that's changed this afternoon. They did get the debris pushed out to the curb. And so if you are a Temple Terrace resident member of the course, they call and say, we're going to let them play. I mean, if we don't have any golf carts to rent them, we don't have any food to serve, the bar's closed, the restaurant's closed. But if they want to take their own golf cart or walk and golf, we're going to let them. So I understand the optics of people out there golfing while everybody else is, but I mean, we didn't have any, I mean, that's their decision to make. So the debris pickup, the allegation, we get this every time there's a storm, that we're prioritizing certain areas of the city. And I will tell you that I have been joined at the hip with the city manager and the public works director since, I don't know, 3 or 4 days before the storm. I don't think we've spent more than 20 minutes apart. The golf course area there's no part of this city that's being prioritized over other parts of this city. I know it feels that way if you live in an area. I could say the same thing about my neighborhood. I mean, I realize that if your neighborhood hasn't seen power, my whole neighborhood's out. And you haven't seen debris pickup, you feel like you're singled out. But I assure you that that's not the case. We gridded out the city and we started debris pickup at one corner of the city, and we're working systematically through 5 zones, 5 grids, 4 grids, 4 zones in the city. There are some of the FEMA contract trucks that are big. They're tandem trucks. They're trucks with huge trailers behind them. So it's like, I don't know how long they are, but they're long. They can't get through some of the neighborhoods. They can't, for instance, they can't get through my neighborhood. They can't turn the corners. The streets are not big enough. They can only navigate they can't take sharp neighborhood turns. So our public works director, when they arrived, said, holy cow, I can't put them in the area that I wanted them in because they're too big. They can't fit, and the tree canopy's too low or they can't fit in there. So those huge trucks have been diverted to streets where there are winding and fewer curves. So it could very well be that some of those big trucks have been put into the parts of the city where the streets meander instead of the sharp right turns like my neighborhood. But that was made on the size of the truck issue. The golf course community, the center of the city, is not the first zone to be cleaned. Right? That is not the fact. The trucks, we started picking up debris yesterday, and they started in the north part of the city. They did not start in the golf course community. So today there were some trucks in the golf course community, but only the big ones that can't navigate the turns. So just a few facts, and I know if you're without electricity and your neighbors are without electricity and your debris is piled up, it feels like you are, and then you drive down the road and you go, well, how come they have power and somebody's picking up their debris? It's not a perfect science here, folks. I mean, we're decimated, we're doing the best we can, and some of these decisions are difficult to make, but I assure you we will get through this. I just encourage patience. It's going to take some time. And as this goes on, I know people are frustrated. Every day that goes on, they get more and more frustrated. When we get power restored, it helps, because then they have air conditioning, they have, the boil water thing was a pain. So that, every day, the situation's getting a little better. But, so anyhow, I don't want to belabor the point. We have a long agenda, but I did want to respond to some of those things. Anything to add, Carlos? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, has everybody reviewed the consent agenda? And if so, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no nays. The consent agenda is adopted. Next is a resolution amending the final site plan for property located at 8633 North 56th Street, and our city planner Malik Hall was here to explain. I believe Malik, yes, he is. Good evening, Malik.
Good evening, everyone. Can we get the presentation for 24-01 up? Thank you. All right, we are here to see the presentation for amending the final site plan for 8633 North 56th Street, also known as Enigma Plaza. Turn it on. The subject property has an acreage of 2.44 acres. It's zoned commercial general and has a future land use of downtown mixed use 35. It's also located in the downtown overlay district known as the DOD. It's at the intersection of Chicago Ave and North 56th Street. To the north of the property is a multi-tenant retail property. To the south is a city-owned vacant commercial. To the east is city-owned outfall pond, and then the west, commercial uses. The site plan modifications related to this amendment is a sidewalk widening, landscaping, buffering, parking, signage and dumpster location, drainage and water service lines, and minor building elevation changes. The DRC supports approval with a few simple conditions. The version of the plan submitted September 12th is the final site plan for the project. Staff suggests that the landscape requirements under the DOD is waived for Chicago Avenue, as well as the sidewalk width requirement along Chicago Avenue. So the portion of the building that abuts Chicago Avenue, that is proposed to be 18 feet in width to be extending the sidewalk. However, the portions at the tail end are not proposed to be expanded. They will remain existing, which is 4 feet wide, due to utility lines. In that same vein, the landscaping that would be proposed along those same sections is to be wavered because there's not enough actual width on the property to accommodate the required landscaping. The permitted uses will meet the standards of both Division 5 and subsection B of 12-234. The restaurants, if restaurants are to be in the tenant spaces, will be regulated by section 12-301. A complete sign package must be provided upon time of building permitting, and the elevations are bound by the ones submitted February 1st, 2024. Section 12-380 will dictate the expiration for the site plan. And then where standards are not mentioned or strayed from in the final site plan, the standard code sections will apply. So if approved at this reading, because this is just a site plan review application in a commercially zoned property, it only needs one reading. So once it is approved, or if it's approved tonight, then it will proceed to building permits. And the applicant is here tonight as well.
Good. Would the applicant like to make any comments or presentation? I'm not sure which one of you is the applicant. Okay. You don't have to. If you want, now would be the time. No, I'm good. Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Hall, thank you. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Okay, council members, are there questions for Mr. Hall? Yes, council member.
Thank you. We're waiting for something to happen with this, so I'm glad at least there's some movement on it. Why the changes on the Chicago side, other than just the available land to work with? Why is it just coming forth now? I guess is my big question.
During my time of reviewing this project, these were the sections of the code that I noticed that needed to be attended to. I can't speak for previous resolution or review of the project.
Okay, all right, that's fair. How long is this all going to take till we're finally completed? I'm sorry, it's a bit of an eyesore, and I get comments on it constantly. How much longer are we going to wait for this project to be completed?
If there were to be approved tonight, then they could submit building permits, I assume, as soon as the resolution is signed, and whatever conditions that may be applied to that. I don't know the actual jargon for the approval of the resolution, but once that is recognized, then they can proceed to any corrections with the permitting office that need to be made.
And it's been so long since we've seen the last set of elevations. There's no other changes that you're aware of. Everything else is the same as we approved back in February.
There are slight changes. The trim of the building is different than what was approved. There's an extra window at the corners, and I believe the alignment of the actual doors and tenant spaces.
And department's okay with that? Okay,
It made DRC approval, so with conditions, that is, suggested conditions.
all right, thank you.
Council members, other questions? Councilmember Fernandez.
My question is about timing. So is there a deadline once, if this is approved tonight and building permits are processed, is there a deadline that they need to be completed, that the project would need to be completed?
Thank you for the question. Good evening, everyone. Greg Pauley, Community Development Director. Unfortunately, Malik is a planner, does not work in our building department, so I'm going to step in here and try to help you out a little bit. As you know from prior reports from me, this particular project has been put on hold due to stop work orders being imposed by our building official. Our building official is not here this evening, so I can't speak for him, but I can tell you what I do know. The project has been on hold for quite some time, and during that time, all existing permits have expired. The applicant will have to take tonight's if approved tonight, we'll take tonight's approval along with the required clearing of the stop work orders and then apply for new permits. At that point, the permits require regular inspections by our building official. If those permits are allowed by the developer to stall and go dormant, then they too will expire. So it's certainly in everyone's best interest for the developer to expedite completion of the project. For those of you that are familiar with the project and have been by the area, the project has been developed up through the shell and exterior finishes. The project has a appealing street appeal. However, it does need work within the parking lot area, along the perimeter around the boundaries of the property, and of course, interior build out. And a project such as this, a build-to-suit project, is often delayed due to tenant contracts with regards to those leases. Mr. Singh is in the audience tonight, and his development of those spaces will be dictated by the available tenants that he is able to obtain and to bring into those spaces. So to give you a simple answer to that, that's very, very difficult for me to do right now. I can tell you that I've spoken directly I've communicated with the developer as well as his engineer, and they are both anxious to get this project up and running again. It's not doing anyone any favors by sitting in its current condition. So with your approval tonight, I have committed to both Mr. Singh and Mr. Aref that I will do everything I can to assist them through my team of the community development to get this project moving again.
Okay, the reason I'm asking, there have been a number of comments in the community, concerns expressed at the duration of the project. And I fully comprehend the build-to-suit for the tenant. That's interior, however. Normally, when you get to that point, you have the exterior fairly finished. So along the lines of the request, the waivers that have been requested, are those, and I know that we said that there are some minor changes to the elevation. What I have in my packet are the current proposed elevation. I don't have the previous elevation that we approved in February to compare to say this is a significant change or it's not a significant change. So I'm going to ask you, are the proposed waivers and the elevation changes significant compared to what we have already approved?
Absolutely not. If I were to put them up on the screen side by side, I would challenge most people to even find the differences. They're very, very minor, but they do exist, and so Mr. Hall chose to include them in his presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, council members?
I have a comment for later.
Okay, not a question.
Yeah, no question.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you, Mr. Pauly. If there are no more questions, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve the resolution amending the final site plan for property located at 8633 North 56th Street.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Discussion, Councilmember
A
Schiffler.
very quick comment on it. We really, really like to get this thing done. I know it's your money that's tied up, but we get complaints from citizens all the time. And I know what you build to suit, that's inside. That's your problem. And I don't mean to be crass about it, but we need the parking lot done, we need the fence down, we need the light structures up, the landscaping done. So I'm going to vote to approve this on the belief that you are going to do whatever you need to do to get it done, because I don't know, I get a call 2-3 times a week on this. Even during the storm, I got a call on it. You know, so anyway, so it's I'm going to vote in favor of it so you guys can have an opportunity to get this done. But this is important. This is important to the area.
I would like to speak once.
Well, there's a motion on the table, so now's not the right time. Yeah, now's not the right time.
I'm sorry.
Are there other comments?
No.
On the motion? Okay. If that's the case, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? No nays? The resolution is adopted, site plan is adopted, so thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, council.
Next is the first public hearing of a resolution adopting the final site plan for property located at 8702 Overlook Drive. So the next two items both involve two different properties on Overlook Drive. I just want to explain up front because this is a little out of the ordinary because of the way our code is written so that everybody understands what we're doing. The next two items, even though they're only resolutions, they require two hearings like an ordinance. And the reason for that is because they're PD, they're plan development zoning, and per our code, that requires two public hearings. And so that's why when we get to the end of this and we say it'll be heard again if it's approved, it's because of that. The other significant thing about these is that motions tend to be in the positive, like we only would make a motion to approve. We would not make a motion to disapprove. If there was a motion to approve and the motion died, it would just be default to disapproval. But on this particular type of action, if the council wishes to disapprove it, it has to take affirmative action to disapprove it. So that applies to the next two items. Does that make sense? Okay, very good. So I'll open the public hearing, and our planner, Malik Hall, is here to explain. Welcome back, Mr. Hall.
Thank you for having me. So we were hearing a final site plan review for 8702 Overlook Drive, also known as Overlook 2. The property is located at the intersection of Grove Hill Road and Overlook Drive. Its acreage is 0.404 acres zoned planned development and has a future land use of downtown mixed use 35. The surrounding properties are single-family residences to the north, south, and west, and multifamily to the east. The property to the east is Overlook 1, their first project. So, the project entails 4 buildings with 2 units per building for a total of 8 townhomes. So it's depicted there in the photo. You kind of see 4 structures. It's divided 2 units per structure with a little driveway that goes down the middle of the property. And it's access from Overlook Drive. There's no access from Grove Hill Road. DRC supports this project with these laid out conditions. The version of the plan submitted on October 4th, 2024 is the final site plan for the project. The suggested waiver for the project is item 2 of 12-1055. That's for an interior landscaping visibility triangle. So in our code, we have actually landscaping visibility for interior exterior to the property, so in the right of way and on the lot. Because of the conflict between regulations within the CRA and standard landscaping regulations, the corner of the building is in the visibility triangle. It doesn't cause any issue to visibility. All the right-of-way visibility is still met, but for the one that's landscaping and interior to the lot, that was impacted. So we suggest a waiver from that. Staff does not foresee any visibility issue with that interior triangle. The building elevations are bound by the ones submitted under Ordinance 1565, which was the rezoning application for this project. The plating will abide by the plating regulations in our land development code. And then the city engineer must approve the stormwater pond and conveyance system prior to issuance of building permits. Same with the Enigma project. These last 2 conditions is section 12-380 will dictate the site plan expiration, and where codes are not strayed from or mentioned in this application, the standard LDC will apply. So if approved on first reading, then we will return, anticipated to be November 4th for a second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Is the petitioner here, the applicant? Wish to make
Yes,
some
yes.
comments? Good evening, sir.
This is a member of the applicant's team, just to be clear.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and board members. Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451 in St. Petersburg. Appreciate staff's work and good review of this. I'll make this very short. Your staff tells you that you found the site consistent in the comprehensive plan. Planning Commission has also supported and approved the request as it's come through the cycles. They found that it is consistent with your land development code and support this request tonight. I won't go very deeply into this, but there are quite a number of policies in your comprehensive plan that call specifically policy 1.2.6 about a greater variety of housing types, occupancy standards, and compatibility of these type of uses. 1.17, create incentives to spur infill for these type of opportunities, and also notes that there's a need for a higher proportion of multifamily along with mixed use and other uses. So it falls well within your comprehensive plan strategies and directions, and we appreciate your staff's work. We've worked very closely with them through the whole process. Happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? If not, council member questions for staff or the petitioner? Yes, Councilmember Fernandez.
Well, it's for staff, and it's really just to have the information so that somebody watching this understands that, because they might say, this has already come before council, and council already approved it. But our previous actions on this property were to approve the zoning, not necessarily the actual project, correct?
Correct. Under our jurisdiction, rezoning applications and site plan applications are separate. Some of them have them conjoined in one process, or nix one, include the other. For us, it's the rezone first and then the site plan application that follows. So we're at the SPR stage now, the site plan review stage. The rezoning's already been done within Ordinance 1565. for this application.
So if the city council does approve this tonight, it will come before us again for a second reading.
Yes.
If it does go through the process, what would be the next step for this project? Would they then be able to get building permits?
Yes, if approved on second reading, then they can move on to the building permitting process.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Other questions, council members?
Excuse me.
Yes.
I just wanted to say, if someone's going to make a motion to approve, please make the motion to approve subject to the conditions of approval presented by staff. So include the conditions of approval in your motion. If you're going to make a motion to deny, you need to include reasons for the denial.
Thank you, Ms. Shoshone. If there are no more questions, I'll close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
A resolution of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, approving site plan review application 24-06 for .404 acres of real property within the downtown community redevelopment area, located approximately 1,140 feet south of the intersection of Overlook Drive and Bush Boulevard, with an address of 8702 Overlook Drive, folio numbers 201-600-0000, to allow for a new multifamily residential development in a planned development zoning district, providing an effective date.
Good. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
Move to approve on first reading, resolution adopting the final site plan for property located at 8702 Overlook Drive, subject to the conditions of approval by the DRC, by staff.
We have a motion and a second. Easy for you to say, huh?
All right, don't let's do it again.
Is there discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted on first reading and will appear for second public hearing on Monday, November the 4th. Catch that, everybody. It's Monday, November the 4th.
Who seconded that?
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Monday, November the 4th, not a Tuesday. It's because it's the election day, so our council meeting will be on Monday. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Next, we have a first public hearing of a resolution adopting the final site plan for property located at 8727 Overlook Drive, and everything that we just did applies to this one as well. And I'll open the public hearing, and Mr. Hall is going to explain.
Good evening. It's definitely going to feel like deja vu for this one. So we're here for the final site plan review for 8727 Overlook Drive, also known as Overlook 3. Overlook 3 is located towards the interior of Overlook Drive, so just north of Overlook 1 and 2. The acreage is about half an acre, a little bit over. The property is zoned planned development, and its future land use designation is downtown mixed use 35. The surrounding properties include single-family residences to the south and west, and then there's a cemetery to the east, and then the north vacant area is actually part of the cemetery's parcel. So that's why I phrase it as cemetery to the north and east, but there's no actual grave site to the north of the property. It's just all one parcel. Similarly, 4 buildings, 2 units per building, 8 townhomes, just different configuration. So, and then the DRC supports approval with a few simple conditions as well. The final site plan submitted October 4th is the site plan for the property, for the project. The building elevations are bound to elevations submitted for ordinance 1564, so that's the rezoning ordinance for this project. So that was a rezoning, this is the site plan. The elevations are already in the rezoning, so we didn't need them in the site plan application. The plating is bound by the land development codes regulations. City engineer must approve stormwater pond and conveyance system prior to issuance of building permits. Section 12-380 dictates site plan expiration, and where the codes are not explicitly strayed from in the actual application, the standard land development codes applies. So same language, same jargon as Mayor Ross mentioned. Once again, for this one as well, if approved on first reading, it will proceed to second reading, which is anticipated November 4th, Monday. A couple Mondays from here. And the applicant is here with us if they want to speak.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Any comments, sir? Welcome back.
I'd just like to say very quickly that, again, working with your staff has been great. They're great to work with, keep our feet to the fire, but they're a great help and really help get the project through and accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Council members, are there questions? I do. Mr. Hall, can you bring back up the slide that shows the general area map? That
One or the actual.
So, yeah, that one's fine. So, the cemetery, the Branch Family Cemetery is an L-shaped piece of property then?
Yes, the property itself is, yeah, like upside, Tetris piece going, the worst type of Tetris piece really, but yes, it's an L-shaped property flipped on its head, and but the cemetery portion is only to the east of the property, not to the north.
So where is the cemetery itself depicted in this map? Where is it in?
Not entirely. I focused the map just on the actual two parcels that make up the because currently in property appraiser it's still a larger parcel and a smaller parcel. The parcel where the red blip is the larger parcel, and the one to the south is the second one. So once everything's updated and said and done, they'll have it all divided as according to the site plan.
So the Branch family access to their cemetery would be, they would have to then go in off of Overlook north of this project and then turn right to get down. So you would no longer see the cemetery from.
I'm actually not aware of what the access is.
Mr. Pauly, you know what I'm saying? You can see the
exactly what you're
cemetery
saying,
from Overlook now.
I'm familiar with the cemetery. I'm familiar with the access to the cemetery. The access to the cemetery would not change from what it currently is. It is along the northern boundary of this project. And for those of you that are familiar with the cemetery, you know that the drive, if you will, into the cemetery leads you past this parcel to, there's a monument sign back near the chain fence, and then there's the fence, and then once you enter the fence, if of course you have access, then the cemetery is both in front of you and to the south of where you would enter. And this project does not impact the cemetery at all.
Okay, all right. Have we, I don't even know where the Branch family, I mean, they're spread all over the place at this point. Have we had any communication from them at all, or?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of. I don't know if the applicant has, but I don't believe staff has.
Okay. So they didn't own this property, they didn't sell this property to this?
I don't believe so. No, I'm getting the no from the developer.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Pauly. Other questions of staff or of the applicant? Okay. If there are no more questions, I'll close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the resolution.
A resolution of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, approving site plan review application 24-07 for 0.545 acres of real property within the downtown community redevelopment area, located approximately 540 feet south of the intersection of Overlook Drive and Bush Boulevard, with an address of 8727 Overlook Drive, folio numbers 201-594-0000 and 2-1593-0000, to allow for a single-family residential townhome development in a planned development zoning district, providing an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
Move to approve on first reading resolution adopting a final site plan for property located at 8727 Overlook Drive, pending
Conditions.
conditions, thank you. Subject to conditions as expressed by staff.
Very good.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Schisler.
Wait, right out of my head.
Very good. We have a motion, a second by Councilmember Fernandez. Is there any comments or discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted on first reading and will appear for second public hearing on Monday, November the 4th, 2024. Next item is a resolution approving the third amendment to the sale and purchase agreement between the City of Temple Terrace and the City of Temple Terrace and Terrace Real Estate Holdings, LLC. Community Development Director Greg Pauly is here to explain. Good evening.
Good evening once again, and no, we didn't plan it this way. It just kind of worked out this way. Quick background on this item. In October of 2022, the city entered into an agreement to sell the property located at 10851 Rawlison Ranch Road to Terrace Real Estate Holdings LLC. The original agreement provided for the development of a private educational and training institution on the property. On February 21st of this year, the parties amended the agreement, modifying the proposed development to a multifamily project, residential project. This amendment also included certain conditions. A couple of deadlines were also put into that amendment. First, the buyer was to deliver a preliminary conceptual plan to the city by July 20th of 2024. This condition was satisfied, and we did receive that. The second criteria was the parties were to work together to adopt a mutually acceptable final conceptual plan by October 18th, 2024. Now, obviously, that's just a couple of days from today. This requirement has not yet been satisfied and is why we are here tonight. The final condition that was in that amendment was for the buyer to include a 10% multifamily offering within their developed project. This requirement also obviously remains pending. On September 16th of this year, the city received a formal request from the buyer requesting a 90-day extension to that original October 18th deadline. You have before you tonight a copy of that request that was submitted by the buyer, and also a third amendment to the sale and purchase agreement for your consideration. If the council finds this request acceptable, I would ask that the council approve a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the third amendment to the sale and purchase agreement with the buyer. The buyer and his team are present this evening for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Pauly. Would you like to say a few words? You don't have to. It's up to you. You're welcome to if you want. Good evening, sir.
Hi. Hi, Council. Jeff Shannon on behalf of the buyer and party to the Third Amendment and the underlying agreement. We just appreciate all the efforts by the city so far, Greg Pauly, and changes in the administration, and we've worked through all of that, and we were happy to comply with the first requirement of delivering the plans timely, and now it's just taking a little more time to kind of work through and make sure that the council and everybody is content with our plan moving forward for our multifamily project. So that's the reason for the extension request that I've worked with Mrs. Schoen and everybody on to present this tonight.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Council members, are there questions for staff or the applicant?
No.
Okay, very good. Is there a motion?
Move to approve a resolution approving the third amendment to the sale and purchase agreement between the City of Temple Terrace and Terrace Real Estate Holdings LLC.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion of the motion? See none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Thank you for being here. I hope everybody is okay in the storm. Next, resolution approving the ballot language for the November 5th, 2024 general election. Our city clerk, Cheryl Mooney, who also serves as the city supervisor of elections, will explain.
So this is more of a formality. The candidates qualified by the deadline of August 16th for the November 5th, 2024 election to be placed on the ballot. Mayor Ross qualified, but because he's running unopposed, there is no need for this race and his name to appear on the ballot. The two candidates that did qualify are Eric Kravitz and Karen Mikowski for City Council. And we have a picture of the, okay.
Okay, so are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this? Seeing none, council members, you have any questions for city clerk? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve the ballot language as listed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Ballot language is adopted. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next is a resolution approving a change order to Danis Utilities, Inc. in the amount of $360,000 $386,070 for the rehabilitation of the Tupelo North Lift Station. And our Utilities Director, Troy Tinch, is here to explain. I think you've been a little busy this week, haven't you?
I've been very busy.
Yes, sir. So
I feel like I've left, as have most of us, including yourself. So, good evening. I think it is evening, right? Seems to be dark outside. I am here this evening to request the council authorize a change order for Danish Utilities to conduct a pipe bursting effort associated with the Tupelo North Lift Station Rehabilitation Project for the amount of $360,070. So when we initially brought this project forward, and it was approved under Resolution 2307, we had an add alternate in that language where we would have these pipes potentially lined, the incoming pipes that come into the system. If I could have them pull up the item that I provided. So what you have here is a diagram of the incoming sewer lines that go into the station. The station actually looks like kind of a house-shaped object. So the two red lines indicate the flow into the system. The receiving manhole is called a king manhole, so that's the last manhole before it enters into the wet well or into the lift station. So we typically line the king manhole and then we clean and inspect the incoming sewer lines to see the condition of those sewer lines, and if they're in bad condition, we will line them as part of the project. However, when we cleaned and inspected these particular lines, we found that there were offsets in both the 12-inch gravity line and the 8-inch gravity line. They both flow. One flows into the king manhole, the other then flows into the corresponding wet well. So the offsets are simply that. You have the pipe that would normally join together, you get an offset in that pipe. So when that occurs, it rules out the opportunity for you to line that particular gravity main. So the next option would be to dig the main up and replace it. So the main that goes from the king manhole into the lift station is about 16 feet deep. So generally that would be considered too deep for us to try and dig down to and replace. In addition, the 8-inch gravity main that leads to the king manhole is adjacent to a home, as you can note there. And for us to dig down and get to that point, it would create an unsafe condition for the home if you were trying to create a trench to dig down to it. So really the best option for us, and likely the cheapest option, was to go in and pipe burst these particular lines. So quickly, what pipe bursting is you take a line of equal or even somewhat larger size, you attach it to a steel bursting head. It has a cable attached to it. The cable is then fed through to in this case, the king manhole for the 8-inch, and from the king manhole to the lift station wet well. And it literally pulls in the new line in place of the old line, so you can make sure you match that gravity that you want to have that slope. It pulls it in, it bursts the existing pipe, and pulls in the sleeve of the brand new pipe of equal size. And as I indicated, in some instances you can actually increase the size of the pipe. We're not proposing to do that. We're just simply pipe bursting the existing lines. So we asked Danish Utilities to provide us a cost estimate to conduct this effort, and the estimate came in at $360,070, which is greater than 10% of the construction cost of about $1.2 million. So we had to bring this forward to council to approve this specific change order so that we can go ahead and conduct that effort, finish everything. The lift station itself is fully online. It's operational. It's been completed. At this stage, we're simply waiting to pipe burst these two pipes, and then Danish can pull off, and we're moving forward from there. So that said, staff recommends City Council authorize a change order for Danish Utilities to complete a pipe bursting effort associated with the rehabilitation of Tupelo North Lift Station for the amount of $360,070. I will stand for questions if any.
thank you, Mr. Tinch. Are there members of the public who wish to comment? Council members, are there questions? Councilmember Schisler.
Yeah, two questions. How long will the process take?
The pipe bursting effort?
Yeah.
It's actually quite quick. Once they get lined up, they pipe burst it in a matter of an hour.
Oh, that's just a curious question. Number
Yeah.
two, my other question was, the offsets,
Yes,
okay? They weren't expected, obviously.
yes.
Would that have been required in the as-bills? Or should they have been required in the as-bills?
So the offsets are something that occur over time, and
Okay.
it's something that's unforeseen. A lot of times you'll have a small leak. Generally, it's associated with a leak in the pipe that just manifests itself over time, and the soil falls out from around the pipe and causes it to sag.
So it's not an issue, it's not an
No,
issue?
no,
Okay, all right,
no,
good.
not a
Okay,
loose-
that was my questions.
Absolutely.
Other questions? Yes, Councilmember Fernandez.
So this is in regard to the sewer fund and finance. And so the question is, when we were doing the budget, did we, I know you can't anticipate, you didn't know that this was going to be discovered, but did we build into our budget or our reserve do we have the funds available without having to raise rates?
Yeah, I think, you want me to answer? Yeah, so to your point, we did not build it into the project because it was an unforeseen event. However, we do have a fairly robust fund balance, and so it was able to accomplish the goals at hand.
Okay, that's it.
Questions? Other questions? So I have a couple. I'm trying
Yes.
to remember what they were now. So what is the status of the operation of the lift station now? Is it up and running?
It's up and running.
And has the rehabilitation that we plan to do, has that been completed?
That has been completed.
Okay, so this is just to finish this.
The last piece, yeah, Danis is basically waiting on us to approve this. They'll get the contractor to come in and do the pipe bursting effort, and then they're all done. They'll
And
pull
how
off.
quickly will that be done after we approve the resolution, if we do?
I would say within 30 days. I mean, given the fact that we've got a lot obviously going on around us, I think contractors are quite busy at the moment, but I would anticipate that they can get this effort conducted within that time frame. Once they get set up to Councilman Schisler's point, it happens quite quickly.
So this is cast iron pipe that has,
Yes.
and the new pipe is?
No,
That's all right.
yeah,
That's all right.
it's either cast or it could be vitrified clay pipe. It would be one of the two.
What's the new pipe?
The new type pipe will be HDPE, high density polyethylene pipe.
Okay, so which doesn't have joints at all, except where
Right,
it
it's-
joins at the ends?
Right.
Okay.
It'd be
very good.
fused.
Thank
It
you.
will all be fused together.
Okay. Okay, if there are no more questions, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. So-
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion of the motion? Okay, if not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No nays? Thank you, Troy.
Thank you.
Council business, is there carryover council business from previous meetings? Okay, new business, board reports.
I have something.
Yes, Councilmember Fernandez.
And I don't necessarily have to have any kind of answer right now, but I just wanted to bring this up for consideration. So one is for anybody that wanted to have some kind of contact with Tampa Electric, if they have a concern, because it was brought up to us earlier that somebody has a concern with interacting with a contractor for Tampa Electric, what would they do to get those concerns to an actual person at Tampa Electric? That's one. And then my bigger question is, with being a tree city, we have a lot of trees, and people are very happy with their trees, and they're very unhappy when Tampa Electric butchers the trees to trim them around the power lines. Because I do think that there's not a lot of care taken to make sure that the result of the trim still has a nice tree, but at the same time, we know that we've lost a lot of power lines due to the trees and tree branches falling on them. So I guess my question is, should we do some kind of tree to power line analysis and look at our vulnerabilities in the off season, the off storm season, and perhaps let those people with trees that, and I know there might not be a good replacement location, but people who have trees that are in precarious locations in relation to power lines, give them the opportunity to actually take those trees down and then provide a replacement tree in a better location on their property out of our tree fund. And so I'm not expecting any kind of answer, but maybe this is something we should be thinking about, because undergrounding utilities, while people do think that's the best way to go, it's actually, it has its own problems. And people, even in this storm system, who have underground utilities have lost their power. So it's not necessarily a guarantee, and it is a very expensive process. Because also, and I also want us to think about, and this is obviously not something maybe that the city would do, but in conjunction with Tampa Electric, we also have power lines in people's backyards still, because it's, some of these houses have been here a long time. And when something happens to that power line, it's very difficult for the power company to then go in and, gain access and make the repairs, and that can delay people having their power restored down the wire. So I think maybe this is something we can look at to see how we could possibly reorganize and mitigate before we have a storm situation. And then my last item is, we did lose a lot of trees in this storm, and some of them were old, good, large trees, and not all of them were on public property. But could we maybe look at a way that we could ask people, or ask private property, if they'd like to have trees to re-tree, that we work with the community to see about replacing some of the tree canopy that we're losing in areas that are obviously not going to be vulnerable to more power line loss. So that's it.
Okay. So, let Mr. B respond to it, but I do want to say a couple things about that. If people want to interact with TECO, TECOenergy.com is the place to do that. And so I do want to tell the public that the city, it's not that we don't care about you, but the city is not the intermediary between you and the power company. That is not a role that the city takes. If you go buy a car from a dealership, the city's not in that deal. It's not, we don't get in between you and Tampa Electric Company. And so we don't have anything to say about that. We do supply your water. We're the supplier of that. We're the supplier of your sanitary sewer system. That's us. But the energy company in this part of the state is TECO. And so if you have issues with TECO, you should contact TECO, not us, because we're not going to take your complaint and then call TECO and work. That's not the role the city plays. TECOenergy.com has all kinds of resources available for people who have issues. Now, I will tell you that this week, you're probably not going to get the same level of service response from them that you would get normally, but they do have a very good customer service, and they're very responsive to us. We do interact with TECO. It's not like we don't, but it's city issues pertaining to TECO, not a particular resident dealing with TECO. That's not our role. The trees, I don't know if we could do better. I'll let Mr. Bahia talk about that. But I personally, I've never had anybody contact me and say, look, TECO's back hacking trees under my power line in my backyard, and I'd really like to just remove the tree, but the city won't let me. I have never had that happen. If you want to remove the tree, I'm sure, I can't predict every situation, but I'm sure our arborist would say, look, if you want to take that tree out that's under the power line, instead of TECO hacking it, take it out. Now, could we do some proactive things about people that say, look, I don't know, but most of the complaints we get, as you well know, are people who say, oh my gosh, they're cutting my tree, and now that's what we get. Yes. And so, anyway, I'll let Mr. B.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I think you actually addressed most of what I was planning to say. As far as re-treeing, quote unquote, re-treeing the community, we do have the tree fund. It's obvious we suffered significant loss to our tree canopy. So we'll be working with our city arborist as to, again, put out more information about how people can can acquire trees to replant in their properties if they'd like. I'd also like to remind council that in this budget, in the current fiscal year 25, you approved $25,000, I believe it was, for a tree canopy study that I imagine will be largely different than what it would have been just a week ago. So in that study, we'll get some more detail as to approaches to maintain the health of our tree canopy, which could include, again, planting different varieties of trees in different properties, encouraging folks to plant perhaps different species and things like that. So that'll come out, at least that's what our expectation is during that study also.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm sorry, anything else? You still have no? Okay. Where are we? New business? Yes. We're on new business?
Huh?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we do business.
Board reports.
Now you-
No, you're.
Okay.
Councilmember Schuster.
I'm just curious, and with the consent agenda item regarding the sewer line, we're still okay with ARPA timing? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes, so thank you for the question. So in fact, just wanted to put it out there for the public in case they didn't look at the backup. At the last council meeting, council approved the ARPA stormwater project for Breger and Bannockburn. And at this meeting this evening, the council approved the ARPA project for Maple Place and River Hills. That stormwater project. So Mr. Warrenfelds will be leading the charge on those projects. And we're moving forward. I would say this week, what happened with this week, as Mr. Tinchin noted, contractors, their schedules have been disrupted. So we'll get back on track. But yes, all our indications are we're moving, we're going to meet the deadlines that we're under relative to the federal guidelines. We don't anticipate running the risk of having to refund the feds for these two projects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other new business?
I have no new business, I have comments. So now, is it? Okay. Comments to the staff, to the department heads, to all our volunteers, to the council, and especially to the mayor and the city manager for your hard work. You know, this was a major disaster that hit our city, and the city has a great plan for many years. And for the most part, that plan worked. And like any plan, some things came up that didn't quite work according to that plan, Mother Nature, but, and some things we didn't anticipate. But I know that our city will look at the after-action reports and try to do better. God forbid we have another Category 3 hit us. But I want to thank you. I watched the mayor personally do a lot of work this whole time. Thank you, Mayor Ross, city manager, department heads being out there way longer than your work days, and the staff. What's impressed me about the staff, whether it's leisure services, fire, police, parks, talking to all them in the middle of this, days after, when they've been working this whole time, their morale was extremely high throughout the whole place, and that was great to see. And that's because of the leadership of the directors and the city manager and the mayor and this council. So thank you, everybody. I just had to say that.
Thank you very much.
Other new business? Okay. City manager's report. Where do you start?
So I thank you, Councilmember Chambers and the rest of the council for your kind words this evening. It has been a very challenging, I think almost 3 weeks at this point. We rolled out of Helene into Milton. The community itself, the residents are under a lot of stress. A lot of us are residents ourselves in this community, so we understand what folks are going through. You alluded to it. We have an outstanding team. Doesn't matter, frontline staff all the way to the top. Everybody worked harder than I've ever seen them work. People were out 2 a.m. in chest-high water trying to fix water main breaks, cutting trees. We had people cutting trees as soon as they could possibly get out in the streets. They were out clearing roads and cutting trees, and they did not stop. In fact, Mr. Warrenfelds, who's a department director, you'll see him covered in sawdust and wood chips half the time. He's probably still shaking them out of his shirt tonight because he's out there with the crews. And Mr. Tinch, he's got, I'm sure he has my number on block now because I've been calling him the last 3 days straight about, the boil water and what we're doing there and trying to pressurize our system. It was truly a challenge. And if you can imagine, we lost water pressure to the entire city at 3 a.m. on Thursday morning. And when that happened, it was a shock. And I'm sure our first reaction was, oh my God. But these folks, within 30 seconds of that initial reaction, they were on top of it and they were taking care of that. The residents also, we want to thank the residents. They have been wonderful to our team. Wherever I've gone to talk, people are like, hey, thank you for what the city's doing. They're bringing out water bottles to cool us off, lunches. They've supplied, food for the EOC and whatnot. So they couldn't have been more hospitable to our staff. So I'm very proud of our organization, and I want to thank them and thank the council. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. B. I do want to there's a lot of people to recognize here, but I do want to, again, recognize Dale and Daniel McClellan. For those of you who know them, they own M&B Products, which is the milk packing plant out near the Amazon warehouse on Harney Road. We came critically close to running out of diesel fuel for our backup generators at our 36 facilities that it takes to operate the water system. We were less than a quarter of a tank at the water treatment plant on Whiteway, and if that tank had run out, we would have lost water for about 35,000 people. So I called Dale McClellan and said, Dale, I know you have big, are you on energy? Are you on power? And he goes, we are now. And I said, well, how much diesel do you have left? And he said, a lot. And so I said, well, we'd like to, if we can figure out how to get that, can we buy some diesel from you? We were having trouble finding it because everybody in the state was looking for diesel at the time. And so Daniel McClellan jumped into action and delivered, helped us. We bought diesel from M&B. We haven't paid them yet, but we're gonna. And Daniel's filling up tanks in the back of his trucks and running them over here 100 gallons, 200 gallons at a time. And we were hanging on by our fingernails, and we're able to get enough diesel in these generators to make it through the night. Literally, we made it through the night. So I can't thank Dale and Daniel enough for that. So the fact that you had water, yeah, I know you had to boil some of it if you wanted to drink it, but you wouldn't have had any water had it not been for Dale and Daniel McClellan. So thank them. City Attorney's report.
I have nothing.
Very good. And Pam, I do want to say that we all know what you're going through with 2 homes that were damaged. And so, and yet you are here tonight for the council meeting. Not only does
I'd rather be here than there.
not only does Mrs. Schoen not have water or electricity, she doesn't even have a livable home. So, thank you for being here. We do recognize that, so thank you. Anything else? Guys, I'm not even going to try to talk to you. You know. All right, we'll be adjourned.